Well, g'day. It's been a couple of weeks since I did a stream. I hope you didn't miss me too much, if at all. Give me a couple of seconds. So I'm really only talking to the people who listen to this later. Oops. Hang on a second. I need to send forward. Need to set up a couple of things. J.Tay. Set up a BCC StreamYard. Well, we'll see, won't we?
You could say a brief update of what's happening in our lives.
Yep.
God's blessing to provide.
Yeah, I'm live now, Marg. G'day, Doki. And if anyone wants to join the stream, let me open YouTube. So did you miss me, Doki? Paste. Oops. Oh, I'm on the wrong account. Switch account to I haven't got my other channel on here.
Oh. Should have had it on here, shouldn't you?
I used to. It's disappeared.
Oh, I had an error. So I closed it. You just
Yeah, but it should have still kept it.
go up the top there and that little icon. Keep going. Yeah, there.
No, that's not that one. That's not YouTube, that's Chrome.
That's what had an error.
Yeah, I know it has an error. Switch account, there it is. It's deleted the account. Oh, there it is. Tap yes. Yes. Right. Try that again. Yeah, so we've been busy, very busy cleaning up the house, but the house is pretty clean. And in about 2 days, we expect to be driving away from Kununurra. Pin message.
You talking to anyone?
Yes, Doki. It says there's 3 people watching. I think one of those will be me. StreamYard. So, for the benefit of everyone who is listening, and if you can share it around, Joel Tay from CMI, originally from Singapore but now living in the US, will be doing a presentation, 45-minute presentation, in 8 days from today. A little bit less than 8 days. No, actually a little bit more than 8 days. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 8.5 days or thereabouts. It'll be my 6 o'clock in the morning, so it'll be 6 p.m. on the 9th of September in the US, in East Coast, Eastern Standard Time. G'day, Conrad. Yes, we are leaving where we live and traveling over 2,000 miles to closer to where I grew up. I've been here in Kununurra for 18 years, 18 and a half years or more. And yeah, we're going to move to the Atherton Tablelands. So that's an update on that. So Gavin and I were supposed to have a discussion on OSAS, but he's delayed that because he's preparing for another debate with somebody or other. So I hope that happens sometime. And I still haven't done my Who is Jesus? He is God, or Jesus is God. Let's abbreviate it to that. And I still haven't sent this email. Copy. So we have a caravan, or as Americans would call it, an RV, recreational vehicle, but this one gets towed behind our vehicle. So one of those type of RVs. We call it a caravan here in Australia. It's about 14 foot, I think, something like that. Actually, it might be a bit longer than that. I'm not sure how long it is, but anyway.
It's actually less than 14.
Yeah. Well, it's about 5 meters, and 5 meters times 3 plus, it's over 14, I think, Mark.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you're supposed to include the bit at the front with it is the towing stuff. Anyway, so nobody wants to come on the stream. The link's there if anybody wants to hop on and have a chat. I'll give you the link again. I'd love to have a chat to someone.
This Doki Doki Bible Club, is he the Filipino?
Yeah.
Is he standing with
That's Bobby. No, that's Bobby. Doki Doki / Bobby / I don't know. He's got a whole heap of different accounts. So yeah, keep an eye out for in 8 days. I'm going to have Joel Tay on as a guest. So that's something definitely to look forward to. And when I get over to Queensland, so it'll probably take me a week or two to get settled. In about a week or so, I'll probably be at my brother's place. I would like to stream him and me talking. So we'll see how that goes. You can see my brother and his family. Yeah, when we get up to Tablelands, Dave Den. I've got a few plans for what's going to happen in the future. And now that Joel Tay has opened the door for CMI, hopefully I'll get others like Jonathan Safety to come on my stream. But we shall see. Right, what else? Has everybody watched Johnny, the Johnny movie, Johnny Erickson, or Joni as people mispronounce it?
Why don't you show them that LA?
Le Marzulli. Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know if it's got...
He said to share it with people.
Yeah, but that way. Am I allowed to stream it?
No,
Or do I just share? Sharing doesn't mean streaming. It's a different thing.
It is free.
Yes, I know it's free. Right. So for those of you that haven't watched the Johnny movie, yes, I know it's spelled Joni, but it's pronounced Johnny. Just ask her. What's going down with the lockdown? No lockdown where I am. You're probably talking about Sydney or New South Wales, not the whole of Australia. Australia doesn't have a federal lockdown. Each state decides its own. and they don't even always lock down the whole state. So this is one of the things that really annoys me about international news and even about Australian news is that they say Australia's in a lockdown when Sydney's in a lockdown. It's a bit like saying America's in a lockdown when New York is in a lockdown. It's like New York is not America and Sydney is not Australia. New South Wales is not Australia. It's in Australia. So I'm not annoyed with you, Conrad. It just annoys me. And I'm sure you'd be just annoyed if I said, oh, how's the lockdown going in America? And it's not happening where you are.
You can tell them what's
I'm well over. I would probably be close to 3,000 miles away from where the lockdown is happening.
You can tell them what happened on our border.
About where I am is similar to maybe Idaho. Compared to the lockdown is happening in, let's say, Georgia or South Carolina. That's pretty comparable. And so asking someone in Idaho what's happening in South Carolina, they don't know and they don't care. I do not care what's happening in New South Wales, and I don't know what's happening in New South Wales.
I know a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm making a point. I'm making a point. I'm being hyperbolic. I'm making a point. G'day, Nick. So, Conrad, I hope it didn't sound like I was annoyed with you. I'm not annoyed with you. I'm just annoyed at this situation. Are you able to come on, Nicholas?
What's GTS?
Good to see you.
Oh. Today.
This is my first food of the day. It's 1:26 in the afternoon, and I'm having some cheese and sardines. Sardines in tomato sauce.
You said you didn't take it that way.
Yes, I can see. It's right there on my screen. So if you want to watch the Johnny movie, I've given you a link to it.
Why don't you give them a link to ABC, what they were doing on the borders of Western Australia and Northern Territory?
Are you going to keep nagging until I do?
Yeah.
And for those of you that think I was being mean, Margie answered yes. She was going to keep nagging until I do. So I wasn't being mean. I picked it exactly. So if you want to know what's happening with COVID where I am, I will share with you 2 news articles from our leftist government-owned broadcaster, but if you ignore the fact that they are leftist, there's probably not much that they tell us in these news articles. Conflicting advice from WA authorities. So that's from the 25th of August. Let's go back to the 19th of August. Let's do the earlier one first. Stop screen, share screen. It's really annoying to listen to myself echoing. Right, so let's start with the 19th of August. This is from Thursday, the 19th of August. Now, for those of you that can't see, let's make that full screen. So this is the border crossing coming into WA. So this direction is the Northern Territory. This is the border crossing. We have quarantine at our border crossing from long before COVID-19 because WA is protecting itself from various agricultural diseases that don't exist in the Kimberley. And the Kimberley is a major agricultural region. So there's various sugarcane disease. We don't grow sugarcane anymore, but there's like sugarcane and there's citrus diseases and there's fruit fly and all sorts of different things. So you have to go through this border check. And it's not super stringent. It's not an ultra fascist. It's just, have you got any fruit or veggies or honey? Honey's another thing that you're not allowed to bring in from other states. Fruit and nuts. Yeah, there's various things that they just ask you, and then they say, do you mind if we have a look through the car? And they don't look through everything. They don't pull everything out. It doesn't take ages. They just have a quick look, and they trust people. So if any psychopaths are listening to this and thinking, oh, we'll get through, well, I pray that God will stop you from even starting your journey, let alone getting this far. But you can see this lineup of people who've been stopped at this border point by the police. So the Department of Agriculture stops people. This is the police stopping people from coming in because of COVID, and the health department. If you can see that, I'll give you the link if you want to look at this article a little more closely and zoom in on that photo. That's that link. So the article says, Kununurra border crossing and testing confusion as NT winds back lockdown. This is from the 19th of August, Thursday, 2 weeks ago now. As a snap 3-day lockdown starts to wind back in the Northern Territory, authorities in Western Australia will be forced to reflect on widespread confusion and mixed messaging reported by those crossing the Kununurra road border and getting tested. 18 months into the pandemic, chaotic scenes again played out at the WA-NT, so Western Australia, Northern Territory road border, as travellers frantically tried to find accommodation to isolate themselves so they could come across so long as they had somewhere to isolate in Kununurra or, on the WA side of the border. But of course, it's tourist season this time of year, and so Kununurra is packed, so there's nowhere to isolate, or it was very difficult. There were people, I saw people on Facebook offering, oh, I've got somewhere for you to isolate, and then they'd get full up, and no, you can't isolate there until those people leave, etc. So it was a big mess, but typical. Everything the government does is a mess. Health authorities were also initially caught off guard by the surge in people who needed to be tested. The situation has placed further pressure on short-staffed East Kimberley accommodation providers who have been inundated with requests for rooms where few are available amid the dry season rush. So our dry season, which is winter, that's the middle of the year, opposite to the Northern Hemisphere, and it's dry and it's cool. So it's normally really hot up here. Our tourist season is this time of the year because it's dry and cool. So when it's too wet, there's flooding, and it makes it difficult for people to travel. And when it's wet, it's hot in the north of Australia. In the south of Australia, it's wet when it's cold. So I don't know why anyone would live in a climate like that, because when you want the rain to cool things down, it actually makes it too cool that it's already cold. And then it makes it freezing cold and kills people if they're outside. Anyway, let's not talk about the weather. I just wanted to tell you that the tourist season for Australia, in the Northern Australia, is in the middle of the year. And then people who want to escape the heat at the end or beginning of the year, because that's when we have our heat, they leave the north over Christmas. So hot Christmas. I'm dreaming of a wet Christmas, because I've grown up with a wet Christmas all my life. I don't dream of a white Christmas. Maybe one day I'll see one. If I ever get to go traveling again. Anyway, health authorities scrambled to deal with testing demand. The border control measures required anyone arriving from the NT to get a COVID-19 test within 48 hours and self-isolate while awaiting the result, with those who had been to an exposure venue needing to quarantine for 14 days. The ABC has been told a queue quickly formed at Kununurra Hospital's COVID testing clinic on Tuesday morning, with further confusion when staff told people not to line up, but rather book an appointment through a hospital number. In response, WA Country Health Service, WACS, opened a drive-through testing facility, increasing hours and stepped up staffing capability at the hospital COVID clinic. Trish Clegg from Victoria was one of the dozen travellers who opted to keep waiting outside the clinic on Tuesday morning. They weren't ready for it. That's the problem, she said. Typical government. Departments not talking to each other. Oh, let's do this. Let's not think about the consequences. Destroy people's lives. They're supposed to phone you to say what time you have an appointment, but we can't go anywhere until we get the test. So the police and health department, it's the health department that make these rules. And then it's the health department, different other people in the health department who say, oh, no, don't wait here. Go away. Well, you're not allowed to go away. You've got to get the test and then wait for the results. Morons. Adding to the stress is the fact that results for standard tests take about 48 hours to come back, according to PathWest, who do the tests. PathWest told the ABC that in response to the demand, it sent 2 additional rapid testing machines and support staff from Perth to Kununurra. Health Minister Roger Cook, we have what you Americans would call a Democrat government here in WA. Labor. They're essentially exactly the same thing as the Democrats. Stupid. Health Minister Roger Cook did not respond to questions about why Kununurra Hospital, 18 months into the pandemic, 18 months into the pandemic, was not already equipped with enough rapid testing machines to deal with the situation. We have a tourist season every single year. These people are absolute morons. And yet I'm forced to pay my taxes to these people who just waste my taxes because they're incompetent imbeciles. Not enough isolation options available. Long lines formed at the Kununurra road border in the aftermath of Northern Territory's lockdown. The crucial element that people had to prove before they were allowed to cross was whether they had a suitable place to isolate while they awaited the result of their test. So a lot of these people, they're waiting to cross the border there. If you go over this direction, to the left of where those cars are, there's a large parking area. That parking area was full of people waiting to cross the border, and has been for weeks. And then there was the other line of cars not sitting on the road waiting to cross the border, the line of cars off the road waiting for the opportunity to be able to get into the line to be able to cross the border, because these people are incompetent imbeciles, and we vote them in. That's the other thing that really annoys me. Yeah, of course. Of course we have incompetent imbeciles. We keep voting for them because they lie to us and we accept their lies. Voters are stupid. Democracy is the worst system of government you could imagine, except for all of the other systems of government. The ABC has been told that people were walking up and down the line giving people advice on what sort of accommodation options they would accept. When Perth traveller Melanie Willows first arrived at the border on Monday, she said people were under the impression they could drive as far as Broome to await their test results. Yeah, see, more misinformation and stupidity. And they want to blame people like me who want to reduce the misinformation and make sure that the truth, all of the truth, is being told. But I get shut down by places like YouTube. Thanks, fascist YouTube. But she said police later reined in their advice. The rule came in that you could only go within 200 kilometres. So they can't, this 18 months they've had to figure this out. Last year, they just locked down the state. Nobody was allowed in the state. WA just completely locked itself down and nobody was allowed to come and go. So we didn't have a tourist season last year. Every single business in Kununurra relies on tourism. We have a peak in the middle of the year, tourism, massive amounts of money floods into the town, and people rely on that 6 months. And the state government down in Perth, 2,000 miles away, just decided, no, we'll just lock the whole state down, destroy Kununurra, destroy the tourism industry, destroy people's businesses, their livelihoods, their savings, just so that we can save people from COVID-19. But people are dying of suicides, and people have got depression, people are losing everything. People are going to die from the lockdown, but you're not allowed to talk about it. YouTube will probably take this video down because I'm saying things that the fascists don't like us telling the truth. It's absolute scummery. I'm really sick of it. It's 18 months. We've been putting up with the lies and the constant changing of the rules, and they lie to us 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 and they lie to us. And then we try and tell the truth. Oh, that's misinformation. Oh, yeah. Scum. Absolute demonic scum. I wouldn't say all Republicans, Nicholas. It depends on whether they're rhinos or whether they actually care about freedom, whether they're true Republicans or whether they're rhinos. Unfortunately, the Republican Party is run by rhinos. So true Republicans are in the minority. True freedom-loving Americans are marginalized. The whole system is corrupt. Anyway, yes, Travis. I should get Travis on here. He'll keep you updated. But he'll keep you updated about the south. He doesn't know as much about the north. That left travellers at the border scrambling to find accommodation in Kununurra, the nearest town to the crossing, which was already close to capacity. And you can't travel more than 200 kilometres. There is nowhere else to go. Maybe Wyndham, but Wyndham's way smaller than Kununurra. And it's not on the way to Broome. It's actually off. It's off the highway. Anyway, it's really difficult, Ms. Willows says. They were either fully booked or didn't have the services. Ms. Willows camped in the Northern Territory for 2 days before securing accommodation in Kununurra and said campsites around the border were full of people who were not allowed to cross. Police have told the ABC the 200-kilometre limit only applied to travellers from high-risk jurisdictions such as New South Wales, and said while it was not against the rules for people to drive as far as Broome, they would not recommend people embark on the 11-hour journey in one go. Under the Northern Territory special presentation for testing, if it is unsafe or impractical to drive there without stopping, travellers can stop overnight in another suitable location. So look at all the constant. Okay, so what can we do? Can we drive to Broome? Well, we wouldn't recommend it. The 200-kilometre limit was brought in, but they didn't tell people it was only for New South Wales until you dig a little bit deeper and you go, oh, this is only for people from high risk. So it's like, oh, crying out loud. Accommodation providers run off their feet. It's not the first time returning residents have been left confused and stranded at the border with just a handful of accommodation providers in Kununurra able to take in self-isolators. Kununurra motel manager Lisa Spackman said those who had rooms available run off their feet. She said while she had taken in about a dozen people who were stranded at the border, there was only so much accommodation providers could do. It's frustrating. You hear the desperation in these people's voices going, I'm at the border. I just want to get home, Ms. Spackman said. Today, the lockdown for the... Yeah, but that's not the fault of the accommodation providers. It's the fault of our fascist leaders who don't care about people. They want to pretend that they care about people. Oh, we're saving people's lives. No, you're not. You're not saving people's lives. You're pretending that you're caring about people. Today, the lockdown for the Greater Darwin area. So remember, this is the 19th of August, so 2 weeks ago. Today, the lockdown for the Greater Darwin area was lifted, but the Katherine lockdown has been extended for 24 hours. So the next region to the east of me is called the Northern Territory. It's not a state, it's just a territory. And the capital of that is Darwin, which is at the far north. 300 kilometres, which is about 200 miles, to the southwest of Darwin, which is towards Kununurra, is Katherine. So Katherine and Darwin were locked down for 2 or 3 days 2 weeks ago. And then Katherine was locked down for an extra 24 hours after that. So Darwin had been, 2 weeks ago, or 13 days ago, Darwin had the lockdown lifted, but Katherine was extended for another 24 hours. Health Minister Roger Cook, that's the Health Minister for WA, did not respond to ABC questions about whether the government needed to provide more accommodation options. Blah, 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 blah. So then a couple of days later, let's show you the next article. Is the rhinoceros a unicornus? Maybe. Okay. Oh dear. I like your sense of humor, Conrad. You think like I do. So then on the 25th of August, so a week ago, conflicting advice from WA authorities confuses travellers looking to enter from NT into Kununurra, into WA. So once again, the same picture, big long line of cars. I don't know. It might be a different picture, but I can't see any difference. It's taken from exactly the same spot. West Australian government and police are again responding to criticism about confusing COVID-19 messaging after conflicting advice from authorities had travellers questioning whether border restrictions had actually been eased with the Northern Territory. The issue comes after a week of chaotic scenes at the Kununurra Road border with many people camping in bushland near the checkpoint because a massive accommodation shortage prevented them from crossing. So goodness knows what happened with waste, how much of a mess these people made, human waste as well as plastic waste and goodness knows what else. Yeah, I hate to think. I wouldn't want to go anywhere near that bushland for a while. A lockdown in the Northern Territory had prompted Western Australia to make arrivals from the NT get tested within 48 hours, then isolate while they awaited the result. While that lockdown ended on Friday, it was not until late Monday that some people who had either recently crossed the border or were still planning to cross received a text message from WA Police saying they no longer needed to get a test and isolate. But the messages triggered further confusion within the community, with the government making no public announcement of the change and making no updates to restrictions listed on the government's COVID-19 website. One of the reasons that I'm going to be glad to leave WA is to get away from this sort of stupidity and incompetence and carelessness and just like apathy. They don't care. They really, really don't care. They just want to pretend that they care. They want to be on the TV saying how much they care because of this thing or that thing. But when you scratch beneath the surface, they couldn't give a toss. The next morning, the ABC emailed WA Police and the state's health department to try and clear up the discrepancy. Police confirmed to the ABC 20 minutes later that the government website had been updated to reflect the latest advice. So police rang whoever updates the website and waited until the website had been updated, and then 20 minutes it took them to update the website and then ring back. So good. At least we can trust the police to do some things right. They're not always 100% completely incompetent, these people, but the problem is how incompetent they are because of how many departments are doing too many things. It's not the government's job to keep us safe. Health is not the government's job. Health is your job. It's your responsibility. And it's the responsibility of the community, not the government. Those are two different things. And morons, communist morons and socialist morons, and even most voters don't know the difference between the community and the government. Oh, there needs to be education, so the government must do it. No, there needs to be education, so you must do it. Or the church should do it, or parents should do it, is where the responsibility really lies for education. And if the parents aren't doing it, then Christians, the church, should step into the gap. Health is the same. It's the responsibility of the family first and the community. And if there's gaps, that's where the church steps in. Same thing with welfare. It is not the responsibility of the government to do welfare. That is Marxism. Welfare is your responsibility. Not just your own welfare, but the welfare of other people. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are. Ooh, who's my brother? Who's my neighbor? Everybody. Especially Christian. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand what Jesus taught. It's your responsibility. Go and look for someone to help. Police confirmed to the ABC 20 minutes later that the government website had been updated to reflect the latest advice, being that the situation had returned to normal and only those who had visited an NT exposure site must quarantine for 14 days. Mixed messages sparks confusion on social media. Among those who expressed their frustration on social media at the mixed messaging was Martin Van Quali, I don't know how to pronounce his name, who had spent the past week trying to cross the border so he can work on a farm north of Perth. Like many others, he failed to find accommodation in the Kimberley deemed suitable to isolate in, so he turned back to Katherine. Then on Monday, he saw people sharing the text message from police on social media showing restrictions had eased. You had someone saying on Facebook you had a text message, and then you had another person saying on Facebook the government website still says you have to self-isolate. It is confusing. Yeah, of course. WA and NT governments urged to work together. I'm just going to show you this video, which goes for 39. Let me make it full screen. So this is the line of vehicles, 39 seconds. Vehicles waiting to cross the border. Fuel truck, what you guys would call gas, by which you mean gasoline, not gas, the evaporated liquid. And a motorbike. All of these people have air conditioning. The motorbike, no air conditioning. And people were complaining about motorbikes jumping the queue. If you want to complain about motorbikes jumping the queue, how about you also stand up for the fact that motorbikes die? Motorbike riders die far more often than car riders do because they have a lot less protection. You can't whinge about bikes having advantages and ignore their disadvantages. Every vehicle, everything has advantages and disadvantages. And motorbikes don't have air conditioning. Oh, you shouldn't be riding a motorbike then. Oh, right. So if I point out the disadvantages of cars, I can tell you that you shouldn't be driving a car because it has disadvantages. Human beings are stupid. Anyway, let's keep going. I think Margie's got sick of my ranting and raving and she's left the room. Over the past week in Kununurra, WA police and health staff have been stretched dealing with hours-long border and testing lines. Stretched. You created the problem. Oh, poor people. Oh, so stretched. While travellers stuck on the Northern Territory side have struggled to access enough fuel, water and phone service. Mr. Van said WA authorities should work more closely with their NT counterparts to improve ongoing issues at the border crossing. Mate, you're wasting your time. WA authorities don't even work with each other. Get rid of them altogether. We don't need a health department. They're useless. For example, you could have a test in Katherine and prove that you've driven to the Western Australian border in one day, he said. Yeah, that'd be smart, wouldn't it? But you're expecting the government to have an intelligent, like, they're not in government to do the right thing. They're in government to help people. When are people going to realize this? Oh, they should do this and they should do that. Right? What about what you should do? We should stop voting for these scum who don't care about us. The ABC, by the way, stands for Australian Broadcasting Corporation, if I remember correctly. They're not actually a corporation. They're actually government owned and funded. They're not allowed to advertise. They're like the BBC in Britain, or sort of like NPR or PBS or whatever you call them in the US, sort of. Not quite the same as that, but similar. The ABC has contacted WA Police for comment. A WA government spokesperson said border requirements were regularly updated based on the latest health advice. Yes, but not regularly enough, you imbecile. That's the problem here. But of course, the government always spins so that you make things look as good as you possibly can. Never admit that you made a mistake or things could be better, or this is particularly important in the Kimberley. Yes, that's right. It would have been particularly important if you had have done it to protect remote and vulnerable communities. So you're admitting that you don't care about protecting remote and vulnerable communities by making sure that you update it regularly enough. The situation is always fast moving. No, it's not that fast moving. You're just so slow moving. Oh, it's so fast moving, because to get a bureaucrat moving, you have to hit them with a hammer. Otherwise, they'll never move. The situation is always fast moving as the circumstances and health advice changes regularly. We urge people to be patient. Oh, you people, you're too impatient. You should realize that the government never moves unless people jump up and down, and then we complain about you jumping up and down. We urge people to be patient and continue to heed the latest advice. Well, that's why people were checking the website, which you hadn't updated because you hadn't put the latest advice on there. Far out. I hate government people. The system we have in place has helped to keep the Kimberley free of the devastating impacts of COVID-19. Oh, yeah, but what about the devastating impacts of the lockdown, you scum, for the past 18 months? No. It annoys me so much. Anyway, let's talk about something else. Someone got a question that doesn't make me angry. No, I shouldn't blame other people. Oh, dearie me. Oh, that's right, Justin Peters. Mhm. Nicholas.
Well, shalom.
G'day, mate.
I hear something. Oh, it's my hold on.
So you're wishing me peace. Shalom means prosperity as well as peace, doesn't it?
You were so quiet that I forgot I needed to mute my YouTube. The way that, as far as I know, it's the Hebrew word peace, and then the difference is how they use it and the kinds of connotations and nuances of the word peace in Hebrew. So it becomes a different word if it's used very differently in some sense. So I don't know much about if it would also mean prosperity, but I do the way that I use it personally is it's the one true peace that only Jesus can give.
Mm.
So that's why I pull it from a biblical word, and it's also like a common greeting kind of word. So it's one of those words that's fitting to not change, similar to amen, how it's the same in the Hebrew and the Greek and the English, and it comes from the Hebrew.
I think in terms of prosperity, my understanding is that the thinking is this: if there's no war and you're being blessed, you can live a peaceful life of prosperity, not just in an earthly sense, but from a scriptural point of view, prosperity. So Joshua 1:8, that thou shalt meditate on this book of the law, that thou shalt prosper therewith. God doesn't necessarily mean financial blessing there. He means prosper. If they had have obeyed God's law, they would have prospered politically and financially and in many other ways. But primarily, God means spiritual prosperity. So I think, and when we think about biblical peace in that spiritual sense as well, it links to prosperity in that spiritual sense. So I think that's sort of the idea, and the way that they use it when they say shalom, they're wishing the best for the other person, that they live a life where they lack nothing and everything's wonderful. That sort of idea of peace, and I understand that's not completely biblical, but that's my understanding of how it is often used in the Middle East. Same thing with Muslims when they say salam, they're wishing the same blessing. That you can live a wonderful life. Now I'm starting to sound like Joel Osteen, but it is that human way of thinking about what peace means.
Yeah, and and I can kind of take your word for it until I look into it more, because what I understand is that it's a greeting, sort of like aloha, as well as it refers to peace of mind and peace with, at least when it comes from Hebrew, it refers to peace with Yehovah. So it's not just the same as lack of war, but it is the same word as like lack of war or lack of chaos.
Yes. Yeah. Conrad wants to know, what's the biggest fish you've ever caught?
But he was asking you, so it would be a question that wouldn't make you angry.
Oh, me? I've never caught
a question that won't make you angry. I think that's what he was doing there.
I've never caught a fish. How dare you ask me? No.
Well, one time I went fishing with my two brothers, one who was like a year and a half older than me, and one who was like 11 years older than me. And we were pretty young at this time. So we were like 10 and he was like 20, kind of a thing. And my oldest brother just caught like, I'll put myself on camera. He just caught like a little nothing-sized fish. And then my other brother caught like a medium fish or whatever. And then I caught a nice big one.
Margie caught a 75 centimeter, which is 30 inches, barramundi.
Yeah, mine wasn't that big.
Which is a very nice eating fish.
Mine might
They're
have been 17, 18 inches would be my best guess today. But it's hard for me to guess because I was a smaller size at the time.
So how's life been, Nicholas?
It's been good.
Yep.
I was like, I was thinking of Conrad. I was like, are we the only two in the room? Is he talking to me? He is. Yeah.
How's your project progressing?
Well, I've definitely focused more on other things, but a lot of the current phase of the project is making sure I get all the protocols right and I iron out everything so that when I do more work, I don't end up redoing it.
How
And
far
so,
away are
so
you
it's-
from being able to look for funding?
Well, I can start to ask for funding as soon as I do the word input for chapter 1. So I could probably get that done in one day
For
of
1
work.
John.
Yeah, 1 John chapter 1.
Yep.
And most of it's already done. And I've done all the translating up to a certain point. So I'm going to do the data entry and then see where I left off. But I've also focused on is deciding how I'm going to aim at, like, there's all these problems in the world and I can only do so much. So I had to really make decisions about what I was going to do. So I think I have a lot of passion for that. I think you're aware of my approach that I like to go to the Bible and read, like I would read from any author, this time the author being God, where I'm hearing as the author intends. And if they're teaching me, then I'm learning as they teach, And I mean, there was only one book I ever read from where I couldn't learn what was being taught in that book, and it was a Stephen Hawking book. I tried that and I only got like 3. I was able to vaguely follow for a couple chapters and then I was done. But yeah, so I'm like, we can tangent a little bit.
I was going to say that's because cosmology, especially evolutionary cosmology, is more philosophy than science.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking is definitely philosophy. That's a good thing to notice. I also took some astronomy, but that was supposedly more science. I do question some of how they're so sure about measuring depth, the deepness of their view based on the non-depth measurements and triangulation and stuff.
Yep.
When there's no way to verify whether they're correct or not. And that is right. What science is verification, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I like to read the Bible in such a way that I'm learning from the teacher as the teacher intends to teach, and not to like do what I want with it or anything like that.
Yep.
And not even really to like come at it and be like, well, I have a question and I'm going to find the answer, It's like if I think the answer is somewhere, the first thing I want to do is be like, make sure I'm hearing the author as he intends, hearing God as he intends in the text in a straightforward kind of a way. And then I can dig deeper from there. But I don't want to start trying to dig deeper before I've even like done a good job just hearing the text in a plain reading kind of a way,
Yes.
And sometimes the plain readings, they're kind of like they're kind of out there, like 1 Corinthians chapter 15 or something. Like yeah, but I still want to do that. And then that's a good example. I haven't actually, like, since I've developed that skill, I haven't gone back to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 yet. So that would be an interesting thing to do sometime.
So is there anything specific you can point me to that God's taught you in the last 2 weeks or since my last stream?
Do you mean like a doctrine that God has taught me?
Anything.
Because
Anything you want to share from the last 2 weeks?
Well, first I'll finish my little summary and then I'll do that. Because I know it seemed like my little summary was done, but it really, it wasn't. So, because my point about wanting the Bible to just like teach me, God to just, for me to just hear the teaching as intended and not to toy with it or anything. And I think the Bible has that, but people get caught up in their like denominations and stuff. Excuse me. And they won't just let the Bible correct them. And then it becomes a problem because we want to be like accepting of each other's denominations and stuff. But at the same time, like, why are we not, submitting more straightforwardly to the Bible so that all the sheep know, like, the Bible has the, because if it's so acceptable to have all these different views, then it must be that the Bible is not teaching clearly, or if it is teaching clearly, then why don't we up the standard? I think the Bible is teaching clearly, so I want to up that standard. I think that's a teacher standards first kind of thing. Like, I think there really are plenty of people in the pews who would like, they appreciate the real biblical teaching, and if they get realer biblical teaching, they appreciate it more. But they like to appreciate the pastor they already have, and they don't know if the pastor is shortcoming or whatever. It's like up to people on the other side of that, or people who are involved with that whole discussion and debate, like you and myself also, and like, so now I want to convey the clarity of Scripture. I want to convey that it teaches clearly, and I want to teach people that it teaches clearly. So
Absolutely.
I've got to like get good at that. I've got to get better at hearing it clearly and being able to express how I'm hearing it clearly and stuff, and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's the main goal that I've sort of been dealing with, because that also has a lot to do with like criticizing how things are being not done right, and then that can be a confrontation with people in a community like the YouTube, Christian YouTubers that I've spoken to and stuff. So CJ and I dug into some things, and then we confronted pretty, we butted heads pretty good on a topic about oneness being taught, and by oneness we mean modalism, where you could say that they say that Jesus is the Father, is the difference between Trinitarianism. That's not exactly how they say it, but as opposed to what CJ and I, and we get this from like Google or whatever, we call it Unitarianism when people say that Jesus is not God. Now, there are some people who use the words differently, even people who hold to doctrines. So that can be confusing, but without getting into that, we weren't discussing people who are saying that Jesus is not God, because that's obviously a huge problem if someone's teaching that. But then if people are teaching that the relationship is, modalistic instead of Trinitarian, then what even is that difference? And is that really like a disqualifying kind of a thing for a teacher potentially or not? Like, how clearly is that teaching taught in Scripture was a lot of the approach I wanted to take to it.
What position did you both take?
Oh yeah, CJ says that oneness or a modalism is inaccurate but permissible.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess for me, in a sense, that's kind of like, for teachers, we have the spirit of truth. There's no reason that we should be like straight up permitting inaccuracy. Like
a verse that seems to me to destroy modalism or oneness would be Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. Unless you're going to take that verse to mean, well, yeah, before yesterday there were modes, but there's not anymore.
So are you saying that the modes means changing?
Yeah. That God becomes Jesus sometimes, and sometimes he's the Father, and sometimes he's the Holy Spirit.
Well, the word
That's modalism.
the word mode is like a way of doing something. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's not. But they do use the word manifestation sometimes, which
Yeah.
CJ was using that in their favor. That it's like a manifestation is like something becoming into reality, and I was like, that's not what manifestation means in the Bible. And then he got frustrated with that part of the debate because it was like, I guess I just have a problem with like for straight up a doctrine like the
Well, if
Christology, you know, the Christology of God, that kind of a thing, if we
if
can put it
God
that way.
sometimes manifests as the Father and sometimes as the Son and sometimes as the Holy Spirit, surely that's a change. That would violate Jesus the same yesterday, today, and forever. Sometimes God is Jesus and sometimes he's not Jesus.
Well, I think if you were to make that argument, then that would open the door for a lot of sort of arguments that people make that are kind of dumb arguments about why God is absurd. So I don't really like see that as a point that I would necessarily concern with either way.
Okay.
I can tell you what
Works.
my approach is because I've come
Yes,
to a
please.
conclusion at the end of it. So and this actually is the thing I was talking about in a sense where I said I would share it next, the thing that I've learned. And in this case, you know, I noticed as I was reading John somewhere in that stretch between like chapter 15 and 18 that it's like Jesus is deliberately teaching the Trinity here, you know? He's like a teacher with his types of tactics of teaching and all that, you know what I mean? And like he's doing this prayer for us to read someday. And like so much praying to the Father and about relating between the Father and the Son and the Spirit. And, you know, um, anyway, and so we were discussing the words that they use because that's where I think the crux of the whole thing comes down to is they're deliberately saying that the word person is the wrong word, but words like maybe manifestation or office or mode, like those may be the right word. And I'm like, but there's a father and a son that are relating to each other. And so I sort of touched on this the day of, but it was more afterwards as I was mulling it over that I came to the more solid conclusion that it's like what's meant by the word person is that, you know, it's not one personalness that's like manifesting to express that there's a father and a son, but there actually is like a personal relationship of one personal father that relates with a son personally. And the whole point of saying that person is not a permissible word, but like office is, well, then you're saying they relate officially or, you know, modally or manifestationally.
Yeah.
And it's like a person is to say personally. So my concern is really, it's not that I want to be pedantic about semantics. It's that like they're saying person is the wrong word because, I mean, if I'll say why I think it is, they're like, because they're concerned that could be polytheistic, you know, kind of a thing. So because of that, they like don't want to go there. I think that tends to be the starting motive, and then once people identify with something, any sort of self-identifying can be a motive for anything you've already done in the past, you know.
No Trinitarian preaches three gods.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes in debates, some of these guys will like sort of put it that way and stuff. But I think it's more of a concern for their own personal belief that they don't want to be wrong by like making God more than one kind of a thing. So it's like a fear-based way of refusing to hear the correct doctrine or being adverse to hearing the correct doctrine. I think that's the fear that tends to sort of start someone that way. Because I know, like, I was careful to put any numbering on God or anything like that until I understood why I would do so, you know?
Well, you've reminded me of one of the arguments. People say, "Oh, how can 1 + 1 + 1 = 1?" Yeah, but that's not how you should conceptualize the Trinity. It's 1 × 1 × 1 = 1.
Well, I do think that's a good abstraction to use, but I even go simpler is just like, you know, if you have like one bunch of bananas, it can be 5 bananas. That doesn't mean
one bunch.
that doesn't mean you have a contradiction. It's just just a silly argument from the get-go.
It is.
You know. And but if people want to understand what I'm saying, it's like the whole thing about the Father and Jesus being 2 distinct persons that are one God. It's not like 2 gods doesn't mean 2 different bearded men, or a bearded man and a beautiful, bearded man who shoots lightning bolts and a beautiful woman who, shoots arrows or something, right? It's just like these characters or whatever. That's not really what it means. It's like Yehovah is the God that is that he is. Yehovah is the one true God. Yehovah is the truth, a savior and a righteous God. There is no God beside him. And so Yehovah is the God of truth and righteousness and all these other things. And Jesus is that God. And the Spirit of God is that God. And God the Father is that God. So they're just not different gods. That's just, So I think if we over mythologize the word God, it can become confusing. Or if we over anthropomorphize the word God itself, that's the only time it becomes confusing. But I don't really think that's what the word God means, as in like Theos or Elohim,
So Standing is streaming right now. How long has he been going for? Half an hour. That's why everyone's disappeared, because I went over to Standing about half an hour ago.
there's news on that front for me to update you on. But
So-
first I want to wrap
Yep.
up sort of what we were just talking about. So so I saw Jesus like teaching that doctrine, and then we just went to we were discussing the threeness and oneness and all that. Yeah, so my issue, and so then so I also proposed like a word experiment to CJ over email after the debate. I was like, a father is a person who begets a person, or no, I put in which because some of the words don't fit well with who, and I wanted to make it like really neutral, so I used which for all of them. So a father is a person which begets a person, which is his son. A father is a manifestation which begets a manifestation, which is his son. A father is an office which begets an office, which is his son. A father is a mode which begets a mode, which is his son. So my issue is that the Bible gives us this father-son relationship is really the big thing to go on for this. And then to like to specifically dodge that whole relationship, to specifically be what the word choice does, and the reason that you insist on the word choice seems to me to be denying the father-son relationship. Like it's sort of to say that it's a fiction that God is using to express this one personality is using this fiction as if there's this relationship between the two to express the oneself, but there is no actual relationship between the two. And that's the only difference I can see in the language choices. So I'm very, very concerned about people who supposedly follow Christ, but they don't hear the voice of the shepherd or like accept the correction of the church or anything.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people have really failed to address this in a good way. If maybe I'm like the end result, like other people sort of blazed the frontier before me and I started where they were and went even further and I'm finally breaking through or something. Or if like, I don't know, I don't want to be like accusatory per se, but I just find like the slackness of truth, the guile, is just so essential to being a oneness teacher. And it's just teachers who are slack to truth and guilty of guile of that sort. They're really, maybe we should stop using the word guile that way because it seems like that's not really exactly what guile means, but it did in that case. Because I think guile is more like tricking someone kind of a stuff usually. But anyway,
so I'm going to have to go shortly because we've got a car in the shop. We need to pick it up before they close.
Oh, okay.
But I've probably got, I don't know, half an hour maybe.
Okay. So I don't know if there's any more to really say about where I'm coming from with the oneness stuff, but it's like I just think the Bible is, I think actually it is the difference in belief once you actually understand the semantics and hear what everyone is saying. The difference in belief, I really do think that like it is really bad to be denying the father-son relationship. To be thinking it's basically a parable or something, That's
Yep. So
So
what's the
that-
latest on Smokey then? Is that the next topic?
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that like he was putting forth a deception to cover a criminal charge, and that wasn't simply enough for people to be like, look, even if he were a Unitarian, someone who says Jesus is not God and will debate against someone like that, because it's like the whole point is to say your doctrine's incorrect. So we want to debate you and show how incorrect your doctrine is because it matters, But at the same time, it's like for you to be like qualified to claim a Christian side in a debate, you can't be like scandalized or something, because then we should write you off and debate a different Unitarian, because it's like the whole Christian point becomes moot at that point anyway, if it's depending on what the scandal is and how it's being handled, And so with Smokey putting forth a deception, with that being how it was handled, there was really, so there, for me, it was like kind of crazy for people to be doing in-house style debates with him as a matter of scandals. We got to have some Christian standards, And then people have finally come around, and that's factored into the equation. So then it's just a matter of, I just really want people to like learn that like that standard is a simple standard where you just simply draw the line, And what really happened was a certain well-known apologist. Other people have been like publicly using his name with regard to this, but he's an apologist who does doctrine stuff. So I don't really want to like mention his name publicly in regard to anything personal. But because it's about Smokey, So Smokey was going to debate this well-known apologist who was already like apprehensive to debate him to debate Smokey because he saw Smokey treating, I think it was the Unitarian who calls himself Oneness, actually. What's his name? Sal of some kind? No, it's not one of the Sal names, but Stacy. So one of those names that can be a man or a woman. So it starts
Oh,
with
yeah.
an S, has an A in it. So I got the names mixed up. But yeah, his name's Stacy something or other. So Smokey, I think, was Smokey's usually really well behaved with debates, but he was being really rude, which is unusual for him in debates, and that happened to be when this apologist saw him, and he was like, I don't know if I can debate him if like this is how he acts, you know. And then I was like, well, he can be really well behaved in debates. He usually is, and it's like maybe I just shouldn't have said anything, but I tend to like put the truth out there, you know. But if I'm not willing to like put out the truth that he's telling lies to cover up a criminal charge, then I probably shouldn't say another truth on it, you know. I should sort of decide whether I'm gonna full disclosure or not butt in. But anyway, Kenny actually convinced this man to go ahead and do a debate with Smokey. But then they checked out enough of Smokey's content, and specifically Smokey like doxed an atheist's workplace and called it and stuff like as a joke on one of his episodes. Was calling around finding the workplace or whatever. So I don't know much about it except that I read where this apologist said so, and then SFT said that he's verified it because he's made public statements about it. So but he canceled the debate with Smokey, and he said that his people at like his church and him decided that they didn't want to validate Smokey at all whatsoever, even by debating against him. And then that was like exactly what I've been saying on the topic. So I'm like, I'm glad an elder with more credibility than myself, you know, and also as a second witness to what I've been saying myself, kind of made the point. And he doesn't know about the scandals, even as far as I know, but it's just like the way Smokey behaves and stuff. And then I think it's pretty clear the scandal is a clearer line, you know. But yeah, so people are coming around as far as that goes, and so Praise and SFT are both done with Smokey, and I think with community consensus, you know, Praise does much better with good community consensus around him. He really needs that. So with community consensus against Smokey, then yeah, and I think like this people lesson, I don't know. I'm hoping Praise has really learned it hard. In fact, from what I last saw, he's still going through like the emotional acceptance of it. And it's probably a good thing that that's a big event for him because it should be a big lesson that Praise learns. You know, and it was a huge lesson that I learned. I went through that in a quiet way on my own, but for a bunch of weeks, you know. In fact, it was so quiet that it dragged out for months, but that was also because it was like a slow cook. But anyways, I think that's an update on Smokey. I think you follow what I've been saying.
Yeah. I haven't missed anything really, except that SFT's woke up to how evil Smokey is.
Yeah, but I think there's also like yeah, also like well, for me it's more a matter of our standards, right? Like Smokey, that's neither here nor there for me. I mean, I would like people to not be like exposed to his channel more and more because it can be a harmful place, you know. But it's like brothers who are willing to cooperate in brotherhood, then like I want to encourage each other to proper standards. So for me, Better Brothers not having proper standards is more my concern than Smokey being evil is my concern.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that CJ kickstarted this, and you're right. The ultimate issue is standards, and that was lacking.
Yeah,
It
and
wasn't.
I mean, it's possible that it still is, because it's like when things become more convenient, things happen, you know? And I don't mean that in an accusatory way, because I also think it's like a good example was set and lessons are being learned, you know? So it's
Yep.
just like, it's a mix of things. It's not just like a simple, you know? So we'll see how it is. But that's the update with that. And then I need to do a video doing full disclosure on what Smokey told me and how clear his deception was for me, because I didn't do it at the time because it pretty much would have been verifying the docs against Smokey, and I didn't want to be part of a docs. And it's not like there's anyone in danger I'm trying to help or something, you know? It's just as far as the crime goes, but at the same time, there is like, I told Smokey if he used deception to just try to hide from the docs, then I wasn't going to make it my business to make it a point to, even though it verifies the docs, I'm going to expose his deception, you know, if he just wants to like, get out of here. But if he wanted to use deception to come back, then I was going to speak freely. And I speak freely now, but I still have to do one last video for the full disclosure of facts. That's my role in the wrapping up of all this. And then that topic will just be done, you know? I mean, Smokey he'll do his things or whatever, and I'm sure we'll peer about him a little bit here and there, but it's like, you know, we're not like sharing our world with him in that way anymore. So that's really nice.
Yep. Well, I better get going. Go pick up our car.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can hang out again sometime pretty soon. But it was nice catching up, brother.
Well, I'll see how I feel. I might start another stream when I come back. Or
No,
I might start one early tomorrow morning, which will be your afternoon.
Yeah, maybe I should get some sleep before you come back or whatever, because
Yeah.
I was like kicking myself because I fell asleep for a nap, and then you were on stream, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't have been awake without my nap. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to start streaming again, and especially while we're traveling, now that we've got the house, like most of the work that I need to do to tidy the house up is not distracting me. That was a major interruption to being able to stream. Now that that's out of the way, I can start streaming again. We bought ourselves a internet dongle so we can stream while we're on the road as well. So I definitely want to get back into streaming again soon.
Cool. I look forward to seeing how that is. And then I'm going to start an epic sermon series. I didn't get to tell you about that yet. But that starts tomorrow, and I'm going to do 52 of them. Well, we'll see what pace I do them at. I might do one per day, and it's sort of like to have one for each week, but to go through them real quick and rough draft them kind of a thing, or to get started. You know, you got to jump in at some point, right? So, and it's really good to see Janet. I want to say hi to her because we have to leave. But shalom, sister. God bless you.
Yep. I think I will try and stream again when I come back before I go to bed.
And just trust Messiah. Okay, I got it in there.
Amen, brother. Amen. And I'll catch us all later. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for Nicholas coming on the stream. Thanks to everyone that was there in the chat. And I'll catch us again in, I don't know, maybe about an hour. Yeah, and hopefully we can get into more Bible with the next one. I didn't really have Bible prepared. I just thought I just want to get back into streaming, and then we started talking about the lockdown, and I started feeling angry. Yeah, let's get into the Bible. Start talking about something useful. So we'll do that with the next stream. Thanks for joining me, and make sure you check out as well. I'm going to have Joel Tay from CMI as a guest on my show. He will be doing a 45-minute presentation. I don't know how much of that will be presentation and if we'll have time for questions, but he only has 45 minutes, 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So it'll be a short one, but hopefully that will kickstart more CMI speakers joining my stream. And maybe we'll get Jonathan Sarfati on my stream. I've got lots of questions for him. There's about 50 different topics I'd love to talk to him about. Most of them creation, but heaps of different creation topics that I'd love to talk to him about, Bible study topics, and there's a few other topics as well I'd like to hear his opinion on, because I follow him on Facebook. Anyway, keep praying. Pray for us to have safe travels. Pray for all you guys as well. I'm glad you're all still here. Well, I didn't get to see Kevin. He might be sleeping though. Hopefully I'll catch up with Kevin. I feel like Kevin's my number one supporter in terms of who comes on the stream the most. Nicholas is a close second, but yeah, I hope I catch up with Kevin again soon.
Cheryl's been coming
On the chat. Yeah, Cheryl doesn't come on the stream. But yeah, great to have you all. Dogie, Bobby, Janet, Conrad, and hopefully I'll see a few others if I keep doing this more regularly again and people start looking for me regularly. Thanks for joining me. Enjoy the SFT. I know that's going on. Is that still going on? Enjoy SFT, tearing strips off Smokey and showing how evil and stupid he is. See yous. God bless you all. Bye.